An 8-year-old girl presented herself as her mother's lawyer in a packed courtroom. No one expected her words to change everything forever. Lily Grace Morales was only 8 years old when she decided she would become her own mother's lawyer. Not because she had seen it on TV or because someone had suggested it. She decided it because that Monday morning, October 15th, while eating her cereal at the kitchen table, she heard her mom crying in the bathroom for the third time that week. Carmen Morales came out of the bathroom with red eyes, trying to smile so her daughter wouldn't worry. But Lily had already learned to read the signs. When her mom stayed in the bathroom for a long time in the mornings, when she spoke in whispers on the phone, when she hid important papers in a shoebox under her bed, something bad was happening. "Mommy, why are you sad again?" Lily asked, leaving her spoon in the bowl. Her hair was tied back in 2 perfect pigtails that Carmen had carefully done for her, and she wore her clean, ironed school uniform. Despite all the problems, Carmen had never let her daughter look neglected. "I'm not sad, my love. I just have a little bit of a headache," Carmen lied, coming closer to give her a kiss on the forehead. "Hurry up, or you'll be late for school." But Lily wasn't just any child. From a very young age, she had shown an intelligence that surprised her teachers and worried her mother. Not because being smart was bad, but because Lily saw things a girl her age shouldn't see. She understood adult conversations, picked up on family tensions, and had a photographic memory that allowed her to remember every detail of important situations. That same morning, after Carmen dropped her off at school, Lily couldn't concentrate on any of her classes. During recess, instead of playing with her friends, she sat under the mango tree in the yard and started to think. She had heard her dad yelling on the phone the night before. She had seen her mom hide papers. She had noticed they hadn't slept in the same room for 2 months. "Lily, why aren't you playing with us?" her best friend, Isabella, asked, coming closer with other girls who were playing jump rope. "I'm thinking," Lily replied with the seriousness of an adult. "My mom has problems, and I need to help her." "What kind of problems?" "Adult problems, but I'm going to solve them." The other girls laughed, thinking Lily was playing at being a grown-up, but she wasn't. In her 8-year-old head, a plan had formed. If her mom had legal problems, she needed a lawyer. And if they didn't have money to pay a lawyer, she would become one. That afternoon, when Carmen went to pick her up from school, Lily bombarded her with questions. "Mommy, what does a lawyer do?" Carmen looked at her in surprise as they walked to the bus stop. "Why are you asking that, my love?" "I just want to know." "Well, a lawyer is a person who helps others when they have problems with the law, when someone needs to defend themselves in court, or when they need to have their rights respected." "And how do you become a lawyer?" "You have to study a lot, my love. Many years in the university. It's very difficult." Lily nodded but didn't say anything else. In her mind, she was already planning how she would study to become a lawyer as quickly as possible. That night after dinner, while Carmen was washing the dishes, Lily went to her parents' room. She knew her mom kept the important papers in the shoebox under the bed, and although she knew she shouldn't touch adult things, she felt she had to know what was happening. With great care, she took out the box and opened it. Inside, she found documents she didn't fully understand, but some words jumped out at her. Custody, divorce, hearing, family court. There was also a letter from a lawyer addressed to her mum that said she needed to appear at a hearing next Friday. Lily felt her heart beating very fast. Her dad wanted to take custody away from her mom. That meant they wanted to separate them. She quickly memorized all the important information: the name of the court, the date of the hearing, the name of her dad's lawyer, and put everything back exactly as she had found it. When Carmen entered the room to look for something, she found Lily sitting on the edge of the bed with a very serious expression. "What are you doing here, my love? Shouldn't you be doing your homework?" "Mommy, Dad is going to take away your custody." Carmen felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "How do you know about that?" "I know there's a hearing on Friday. I know Dad has a lawyer, and I know you don't have money to pay for one." Carmen sat down heavily on the bed, feeling defeated. "Lily, these are grown-up things. You don't have to worry about this. But if they're going to separate me from you, I do have to worry." Tears began to run down Carmen's face. For months, she had been fighting alone against the divorce proceedings that Roberto, her ex-husband, had initiated. He had a well-paying job, an expensive lawyer, and had been building a case to show that Carmen was an unfit mother. "My love, I'm going to fight for you. I'm not going to let them separate us. But how are you going to fight without a lawyer?" Carmen had no answer for that question. Roberto had cut off her access to their bank accounts, had stopped giving money for household expenses, and she had had to look for work as a housekeeper to be able to survive. She had no money to hire a lawyer. "Mommy, I'm going to be your lawyer." Carmen would have laughed if the situation weren't so desperate. "My love, you're 8 years old. Children can't be lawyers. But can I go with you to the court?" "I guess so." "Then I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to help you." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity for Lily. During recess at school, instead of playing, she went to the library and asked the librarian to help her find information about family laws. Mrs. Gonzalez, who was the librarian, at first thought it was for a school project. "Lily, this is very advanced for your age. Are you sure it's for school?" "It's to help my mom," Lily replied with complete honesty. Mrs. Gonzalez had been a librarian for 20 years and had seen many children pass through, but she had never seen an 8-year-old read legal codes with such concentration. She decided to help, thinking that maybe the girl was going through a difficult family situation. For a week, Lily immersed herself in family law books. Obviously, she didn't understand everything, but she had a natural ability to identify the important information. She learned about the rights of minors, about the criteria that judges use to determine custody, about the importance of the minor's well-being above all else. But the most important thing she discovered was that in some special cases, minors can express their opinion to the judge, and although they couldn't legally represent themselves, they could speak about their feelings and preferences. On Thursday night, the eve of the hearing, Carmen was sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by papers trying to prepare her defense herself. Lily came over with a notebook in her hands. "Mommy, I've been studying about family laws." Carmen looked up, surprised. "What have you been doing?" "What?" "I've been learning about children's rights and about custody hearings. Look, I wrote down all the important things you have to say tomorrow." Carmen took the notebook and couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her 8-year-old daughter had written in her child's handwriting, but with a surprisingly mature content, a summary of the most important legal arguments for her case. "Lily, this is incredible. How do you know all this?" "I read books in the library, and I also talked to Mrs. Gonzalez. She explained a lot of things to me." Carmen hugged her daughter, feeling overwhelmed by the little girl's intelligence and determination. "My love, tomorrow in court, there will be a lot of lawyers and judges. It's going to be very serious, and maybe a little scary." "I'm not scared, Mommy. I'm going to be with you." "But what are you going to do?" Lily looked at her with those intelligent eyes that had always surprised all the adults around her. "I'm going to tell the judge the truth. I'm going to tell him why I need to stay with you, and I'm going to prove to him that you are the best mommy in the world." Carmen felt tears in her eyes. Her 8-year-old daughter had done more to prepare her defense than she had herself. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure, Mommy. We are a team, and teams don't separate." That night, mother and daughter stayed up late, going over everything they had prepared. Carmen explained to Lily what she could expect in court, and Lily showed her mom all the things she had learned about her rights. When they finally went to sleep, Carmen realized that for the first time in months she felt hopeful. Her little girl had given her something she hadn't had during this whole nightmare, the certainty that she wasn't alone in this fight. The next morning, as they prepared to go to court, Lily dressed in her best clothes, a navy blue skirt, a white blouse, and the black shoes that Carmen had bought her for special occasions. She styled her hair into a neat ponytail and took her notebook with all her notes. "Are you ready, my lawyer?" Carmen asked, trying to sound cheerful despite the nerves. "I'm ready, Mommy. We are going to win." And as they took the bus to the courthouse, Carmen didn't know that her 8-year-old daughter was about to do something that would change not only her life, but the way the entire family justice system would view the rights of minors. Because Lily Grace Morales had not only decided to be her mother's lawyer, she had decided to fight for her family with the strength of her innocence, the clarity of her love, and an intelligence that was about to surprise everyone in that courtroom. Barasif, the courtroom hearing. The family court of the Central District was an imposing building of gray concrete that intimidated even the most secure adults. When Carmen and Lily arrived that Friday morning, There were dozens of people waiting in the hallways, lawyers in expensive suits, nervous families and officials walking back and forth with folders full of documents. Carmen felt her legs tremble as they went up the stairs to courtroom number 3. She wore her best dress, a navy blue one she had bought years ago for a job interview, and had tried to get ready as best as possible despite not having slept all night. Next to her, Lily walked with firm steps, carrying her school backpack that now contained all her notebooks with legal notes. "Mommy, breathe," Lily whispered, taking her mother's hand. "Remember what we practiced last night." But when they arrived in front of the door of the courtroom, Carmen froze. Through the glass she could see Roberto, her ex-husband, sitting at a table with 2 men in suits who were obviously expensive lawyers. Roberto wore a new suit that had probably cost more than what Carmen earned in 3 months. And he looked relaxed, even smiling, as if he had already won the case. "I can't do this," Carmen murmured. "Look, they have real lawyers, professional documents. They have probably prepared this for months." Lily followed her mother's gaze and saw the scene she had so feared. Her dad was not alone. He had an entire legal team working for him, but instead of being intimidated, something was lit inside the girl. It was the same determination she had inherited from her mother, but multiplied by the mental clarity of someone who did not know the fear of failure. "Mommy, do you know what the difference is between us and them?" Lily asked, pointing to her father's table. "What?" "They have money, but we have the truth. And I read in my books that the truth is always stronger than money." Carmen looked at her 8-year-old daughter, who had such a serious and determined expression that for a moment she forgot she was talking to a child. "Do you really believe that?" "I don't believe it, Mommy. I know it because I've been studying, and I know exactly what we have to say. Trust me." When they entered the room, all eyes turned to them. Roberto frowned when he saw that Carmen had brought Lily, and one of his lawyers immediately approached to speak to him in a low voice. It was obvious that they did not expect the girl to be present. Carmen and Lily sat at the table they had been assigned, which looked sadly empty compared to Roberto's legal team. Carmen had only a folder with some basic documents, while Lily took out her school notebooks and meticulously organized them in front of her. "What is that girl doing?" Carmen heard one of Roberto's lawyers murmur. "She is preparing," Carmen responded aloud, with more confidence than she really felt. The judge entered the room 5 minutes later. He was an older man with gray hair and a serious expression who had seen hundreds of custody cases during his 20 years in family court. His name was Magistrate Herrera, and he had a reputation for being fair, but strict. "Good morning. We are here for the custody hearing in the case of Morales versus Morales," he announced, looking at the documents in front of him. "I see that the plaintiff is represented by the lawyers Fernandez and Castillo. Does the defendant have legal representation?" Carmen stood up nervously. "No, Your Honor. I am representing myself." "I understand. And who is the minor who accompanies you?" "She is my daughter, Lily Grace Morales. She wanted to be present." Magistrate Herrera looked at the girl with curiosity. In his years of experience, he had seen minors in custody hearings, but they generally remained silent and scared. This girl had something different. She was sitting upright, with notebooks organized in front of her, and looked directly into his eyes without fear. "Very well. We will proceed with the initial statements. Lawyer Fernandez, can you begin?" Dr. Fernandez stood up with the confidence of someone who had won dozens of similar cases. He was a man of about 50 years with an expensive suit and refined manners that immediately established his authority in the room. "Your Honor, my client, Roberto Morales, seeks full custody of his minor daughter, Lily Grace Morales, due to the inadequate conditions in which the minor is currently living with the defendant, Carmen Morales." Carmen felt her heart accelerate. She knew this was coming, but hearing it out loud in that formal room made her feel as if her daughter was being snatched away from her at that very moment. "My client can demonstrate that he possesses economic stability, adequate housing, and a stable family environment that includes his new wife, who is willing to assume the role of maternal figure for the minor." Lily clenched her fists upon hearing that. Her dad had remarried just 3 months ago, with a woman that Lily had only met twice and who clearly had no real interest in being her maternal figure. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that the defendant has been exposed to situations of economic instability that directly affect the well-being of the minor." Carmen Morales does not have a steady job, has changed residences 3 times in the last year, and cannot provide the level of life that the girl needs and deserves. Every word was like a dagger for Carmen. Everything he said was technically true, but it did not tell the whole story. Yes, she had changed residences, but because Roberto had stopped paying the rent for the apartment where they lived. Yes, she had had temporary jobs, but because he had used his connections to get her fired from stable jobs. The minor requires stability, structure, and educational opportunities that my client can provide, while the defendant cannot guarantee these basic elements for the proper development of the girl. The lawyer continued for 15 more minutes presenting Roberto's financial documents, photos of his new house, testimonies from his new wife, and a psychological evaluation they had ordered that supposedly demonstrated that Lily would be better adapted in an environment of greater economic stability. When he finished, the judge addressed Carmen. "Mrs. Morales, can you present your initial statement?" Carmen stood up with trembling legs. She had practiced what she was going to say, but now, after hearing the entire professional presentation from Roberto's lawyer, she felt completely out of place. "Your Honor, I love my daughter more than my own life. It is true that I don't have a lot of money, but that doesn't make me a bad mother. Lily is fine with me. She is happy. She is healthy. She is learning." "Mrs. Morales," Roberto's lawyer interrupted her, "can you provide documentation that demonstrates housing stability for the next 6 months?" Carmen fell silent. She did not have that documentation because she depended on the domestic work she got week by week. "Can you demonstrate fixed income that guarantees the minor's support?" Again, silence. Carmen felt she was drowning. "Your Honor," the lawyer continued, "the defendant clearly cannot provide the basic answers that any responsible parent should have. This demonstrates exactly why my client must obtain custody." Carmen felt defeated before she had started. She just stood there looking at the judge, not knowing what else to say. Tears began to form in her eyes. It was at that moment that Lily stood up. "Your Honor, can I say something?" The whole room fell silent. The judge looked at her with surprise. Roberto frowned, and the lawyers looked at each other, as if asking if this was normal. "Child, this is a legal hearing between adults," Magistrate Herrera said in a gentle but firm voice. "I know, Your Honor, but according to Article 12 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which was ratified by our country, I have the right to express my opinion on all matters that affect me, and my opinion must be taken into account according to my age and maturity." The silence in the room became deafening. Everyone stared at the 8-year-old girl who had just quoted international human rights legislation with the precision of an experienced lawyer. Magistrate Herrera took off his glasses and looked more attentively at Lily. In his 20-year career, he had never heard a minor quote the Convention on the Rights of the Child in her own custody hearing. "Do you know what that article means, child?" "Yes, Your Honor." "It means that you have to listen to what I have to say about where I want to live and with whom, because this decision is going to affect my whole life." Roberto looked increasingly uncomfortable and whispered something urgently to one of his lawyers. "Furthermore," Lily continued with a calm that surprised everyone, "I have been studying about custody hearings, and I know that you have to make your decision based on what is the best option for me, not on who has more money." Roberto's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The minor does not have the legal capacity to participate in these proceedings." Lily turned to the lawyer with an expression that would have been intimidating even in an adult. "Mr. Lawyer, I have the right to be heard, and if you really cared about my well-being, you would want to hear what I have to say, instead of trying to silence me." The whole room was stunned. An 8-year-old girl had just faced an experienced lawyer and had won the exchange. Magistrate Herrera leaned forward in his chair. "Lily, can you tell me what you have been studying exactly?" "I have been reading about family laws, Your Honor, about the criteria you use to decide who should have custody, and I have prepared a presentation to explain why I should stay with my mom." The judge looked towards Roberto's lawyers, then towards Carmen, and finally back at Lily. "A presentation?" "Yes, Your Honor. I have documented all the legal reasons why custody should stay with my mom. And I have also prepared evidence about why my dad's claims are not telling the whole truth." Roberto went pale. Dr. Fernandez seemed completely out of place. "Your Honor," the lawyer intervened urgently, This is completely inappropriate. We cannot allow a minor to direct a legal hearing. But Magistrate Herrera raised his hand to silence him. In his years of experience, he had seen many things, but he had never seen a girl so prepared and articulate in a custody hearing. His instinct told him that he should listen to what this girl had to say. Lily, I am going to give you 10 minutes to present your case, but I want you to understand that this is very serious. You have to speak with the truth and only the truth. Lily nodded solemnly. I understand, Your Honor. I am only going to say the truth. Carmen looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and terror. She did not know exactly what Lily was going to say, but she knew that her 8-year-old girl was about to do something that no one in that room would ever forget. Lily opened her first notebook, took a deep breath, and began her presentation. What she was going to say in the next 10 minutes would not only change the result of this hearing, but would transform forever the way the family justice system considered the voice of minors. Because Lily Grace Morales was not just an intelligent girl defending her mother. She was a girl who had discovered secrets about her father that no one else in that room knew, and was about to reveal a truth that would change everything. A child's testimony. Lily stood up with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed this moment hundreds of times in her mind. She had her notebooks organized in front of her as if she were an experienced lawyer. And when she began to speak, her voice was clear and strong throughout the room. Your Honor, my name is Lily Grace Morales. I am 8 years old, and today I am here as my mom's lawyer, because we don't have money to pay for a real one. But I have studied a lot, and I know exactly what I have to say. Magistrate Herrera leaned forward, completely fascinated. In 2 decades, he had never seen anything like it. My dad's lawyer said that my mom can't take care of me because she doesn't have money, but I read in the Family Code, Article 423, that custody decisions must be based on the best interest of the minor, not on the economic situation of the parents. Roberto began to look increasingly uncomfortable in his chair. His lawyer took notes quickly, clearly trying to formulate a response. I also read that you, Your Honor, have to consider factors such as emotional stability, the emotional bond, and the family environment, not just money. Lily opened her second notebook and took out several sheets of paper. Your Honor, I have prepared evidence of why my mom is the best option for me. First, here are my grades from the last 2 years. She handed the sheets to the court clerk, who passed them to the judge. As you can see, all my grades are excellent. I have never failed a subject. I have never been late for school, and my teachers always write positive comments about my behavior. Magistrate Herrera reviewed the grades with surprise. It was true. The girl had an exceptional academic performance. This shows that my mom is taking good care of me. If I were neglected or in an inadequate environment, my grades would not be like this. Roberto's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, grades do not... Mr. Lawyer, Lily interrupted him with a firmness that surprised everyone. You already had your turn to speak. Now it's my turn. Please do not interrupt me. The lawyer was left with his mouth open. An 8-year-old girl had just silenced him in the middle of a courtroom. Furthermore, Lily continued, I have documented all the activities I do with my mom, which show that we have a strong and healthy relationship. She took a small photo album from her backpack. Here I have photos of when my mom helps me with my homework every night. Here we are cooking together on Sundays. Here we are at the library where we go every Saturday so that I can read. She went through the photos one by one, and in each image you could clearly see the love between mother and daughter. Carmen had tears in her eyes, seeing how her daughter had meticulously documented their life together. Your Honor, my mom may not have a lot of money, but she gives me something that money cannot buy. Time, attention, and true love. Lily closed the album and opened her third notebook. Now I want to talk about why I should not go to live with my dad. Roberto tensed visibly in his seat. Your Honor, it is true that my dad has money and a big house, but I have been observing and documenting things that the court needs to know. Roberto's lawyer stood up again. Your Honor, this is inappropriate. The minor cannot make accusations without... Mr. Lawyer, said Magistrate Herrera with a firm voice, I already warned you not to interrupt the minor. If you do it again, I will have to ask you to leave the room. Lily nodded gratefully to the judge and continued. My dad says he wants to take care of me, but in the last 6 months since this process began, he has only visited me 4 times, and each time he comes he only stays for an hour and spends most of the time talking on his work phone. She took a small calendar from her notebook where she had marked each of her father's visits with specific details. Your Honor, here I documented each visit, how long he stayed, what we did, and what we talked about. As you can see, the longest visit was an hour and a half and the shortest was only 30 minutes. Magistrate Herrera took the calendar and reviewed it carefully. It was obvious that Lily had been keeping a detailed and precise record. Also, my dad never asks me about my school, my friends, or how I feel. He always talks about what he is going to buy me or the places he is going to take me when I live with him, but he never asks me what I want. Roberto was increasingly pale. Everything his daughter said was true, and he knew it. Your Honor, I also want to talk about my dad's new wife. Lily opened a new section of her notebook. Mrs. Patricia, who married my dad 3 months ago, has only met me twice. The first time when I was introduced, she told me that I would have to change the way I dress, because it was not appropriate for a girl in her new family. The second time she told me that I would have to stop talking so much because well-behaved girls are quieter. Carmen was surprised. Lily had never told her these details about her encounters with Roberto's new wife. Your Honor, a real mom does not try to change her daughter to fit an image. A real mom loves her daughter exactly as she is. The silence in the room was total. Even Roberto's lawyers had stopped taking notes. But most importantly, Your Honor, is that I have evidence that my dad is not telling the whole truth about why he wants my custody. Roberto went rigid. His lawyers looked at each other with concern. Your Honor, 3 weeks ago I heard a phone conversation of my dad's that I was not supposed to hear. Lily took a deep breath before continuing, knowing that what she was about to say would change everything. My dad was talking to someone about money. He said that if he got my custody, he was going to receive an inheritance from my paternal grandmother that is stored in a fund for me. He said verbatim, "I just need to have legal custody to access the fund. The girl doesn't even need to live with me all the time. I just need to be her legal guardian." The bomb had exploded. Roberto stood up abruptly with his face red with anger. "That's a lie. She's making that up." "Roberto, sit down," ordered Magistrate Herrera. Lily continued in a firm voice, unintimidated by her father's reaction. "Your Honor, I also heard my dad tell that person that after obtaining custody, he planned to send me to a boarding school so that I would not be a nuisance in his new marriage." Carmen gasped. Roberto did not want Lily. He only wanted access to the money she was entitled to inherit. "That's enough!" Roberto shouted. "I will not allow my own daughter to defame me like this!" But Lily was not finished. "Your Honor, there is one more thing you need to know. Something my mom does not know, and that my dad definitely does not want to be known." Everyone in the room was on the edge of their seats. My dad did not stop giving us money because he couldn't. He stopped giving us money because he wanted my mom to look like a bad mother who can't support me. Lily took out one last sheet of paper from her notebook. "Your Honor, this is the bank statement from the bank where my dad has his money. I copied it the last time I was in his office." Roberto's lawyer stood up immediately. "Your Honor, that is evidence illegally obtained by a minor." "Mr. Lawyer," Lily interrupted him, "I did not steal anything. This paper was on my dad's desk in his office when I went to visit him. Since he is my dad, I thought I could see his things. It is not normal for a daughter to know her father's financial situation." Magistrate Herrera took the paper and examined it carefully. It was authentic and showed that Roberto had more than enough resources to have maintained his financial obligations with Carmen and Lily. "Your Honor," Lily continued, "according to this document, my dad earned more money last year than my mom and I would need in 10 years. But he left us without money for food and to pay the rent. Does that seem like the behavior of a father who cares about his daughter?" Roberto was completely broken. His own lawyers looked at him with a mixture of surprise and reproach. Lily closed her notebooks and looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, I have studied many custody cases in the library books, and I have learned that you have to decide what is best for me. It is not more convenient for adults." She paused, and when she continued, her voice softened with a genuine emotion that touched the heart of everyone in the room. "My mom may not have a big house or a lot of money, but when I have nightmares, she stays awake with me all night. When I am sick, she takes care of me regardless of whether she has to miss work. When I have problems in school, she helps me solve them. When I am sad, she hugs me until I feel better." The tears began to run down her cheeks, but her voice remained firm. "My dad can buy me things, but my mom gives me true love, and true love cannot be bought with money. Lily turned towards Roberto, and what she said next would be engraved in the memory of all those present forever. Dad, if you really loved me, you would not be trying to separate me from the person I love the most in the world. If you really cared about my happiness, you would not have made my mom suffer so much. And if you really wanted to take care of me, you would have been taking care of me all these months instead of planning how to use me to get money. The silence in the room was absolute. Roberto could not even look his daughter in the eyes. Lily turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I know I'm only 8 years old. I know I am not a real lawyer, but I do know what it feels like to be truly loved, and I know what it feels like when someone only wants you for what you can give them. She looked towards her mother, who was crying silently. I want to stay with my mom not because she is perfect, but because she loves me perfectly, and that is the only thing I need to grow up happy and healthy. Lily picked up her notebooks and sat down, having presented the most convincing case that Magistrate Herrera had heard in his 20-year career. The room remained silent for several minutes. Roberto and his lawyers seemed completely defeated. Carmen cried with pride and relief, and the judge looked at the 8-year-old girl who had just shown that wisdom and truth have no age. Very well, Magistrate Herrera finally said. I will take a 30-minute recess to deliberate. When I return, I will give my decision. As the judge left the room, Lily turned towards her mother and hugged her. You did it perfectly, my love, Carmen whispered. I'm so proud of you. You think it worked, Mommy? Carmen looked towards the table where Roberto and his lawyers were talking in a low and urgent voice, clearly in a panic. I think you just won your first case, lawyer. A new beginning. The 30-minute recess felt like an eternity. Carmen and Lily stayed seated at their table, holding hands, while they watched Roberto and his lawyers have an increasingly heated discussion in whispers. It was obvious that the legal team was furious with Roberto for not having told them the whole truth about his real motivations. Mommy, do you think I did the right thing by telling all those secrets about Dad? Lily asked in a low voice, suddenly showing the vulnerability of an 8-year-old girl who had just confronted her own father in public. Carmen stroked her daughter's hair. My love, you told the truth, and the truth is always the right thing to do, even if it hurts. But now Dad is very angry with me. Lily, look at me. Carmen took her daughter's face in her hands. If your dad is angry because you told the truth, then the problem is not you. The problem is that he did not want the truth to be known. At the front table, one of Roberto's lawyers stood up abruptly and began to put away his documents. It was obvious that they had decided that the case was lost, and they no longer wanted to be associated with a client who had lied so blatantly to them. Mr. Morales, they heard Dr. Fernandez say to Roberto in a low but audible voice. You did not inform us about the inheritance or your true intentions. This constitutes a serious violation of the trust between client and lawyer. You can't abandon me now, Roberto murmured desperately. Mr. Morales, after what that girl just revealed, there is no legal strategy that can save this case. Besides, frankly, we are not comfortable representing someone who seeks custody of a minor for financial motivations. Roberto was left alone at his table, watching his lawyers pick up their things and prepare to leave. For the first time in the entire process, he looked truly defeated. It was at that moment that the doors of the room opened and Magistrate Herrera returned. His expression was serious, but there was something in his eyes that Carmen could not interpret. Please take your seats, the court secretary announced. Everyone settled down in silence. Roberto's lawyers had stayed, but it was obvious that it was only for formality. Roberto looked pale and defeated. Carmen squeezed Lily's hand, and Lily took a deep breath, preparing to listen to the words that would determine her future. Magistrate Herrera sat down in his chair and looked towards everyone present before beginning to speak. In my 20 years presiding over this family court, I have seen hundreds of custody cases. I have heard brilliant lawyers present convincing arguments. I have reviewed thousands of legal documents and have made decisions that have affected the lives of countless families. He paused, looking directly at Lily. But never in my entire career had I witnessed a presentation as clear, as well-founded and as honest as the one we have just heard from this 8-year-old girl. Carmen felt her heart accelerate. Was that good or bad? Lily Grace Morales has today demonstrated an understanding of the law, an ability to analyze, and an emotional maturity that surpasses many adults who have passed through this room. The judge took a folder and opened it in front of him. But more important than her exceptional intelligence, she has demonstrated something that is fundamental in these cases, a clear understanding of what true love and true family mean. Roberto shifted uncomfortably in his seat. In this case, we have a plaintiff who has considerable economic resources, but whose motivations for seeking custody have been seriously questioned by the evidence presented today. Magistrate Herrera looked directly at Roberto. Mr. Morales, the evidence suggests that your interest in obtaining custody of your daughter is not motivated by her well-being, but by financial considerations related to a family inheritance. This constitutes a fundamental violation of the principle of the best interest of the minor. Roberto lowered his head, knowing that there was no way to deny what Lily had revealed. Furthermore, the pattern of sporadic visits, the lack of genuine participation in the daily life of the minor, and the reported comments about sending her to a boarding school demonstrate a lack of real commitment to her role as a father. The judge closed the folder and addressed Carmen. On the other hand, we have a defendant who, although facing economic difficulties, has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to the well-being of her daughter. The excellent grades of the minor, her healthy emotional development, and the photographic evidence of a close and loving relationship between mother and daughter speak for themselves. Carmen felt tears of relief beginning to form in her eyes. But what has impacted me the most today, the magistrate continued, is the fact that this 8-year-old girl had to become the defender of her own mother, because the system did not provide them with adequate legal representation. The judge stood up, and everyone in the room did the same. Therefore, my decision is as follows. Full custody of the minor Lily Grace Morales is granted to her mother, Carmen Morales. In addition, I order that Mr. Roberto Morales immediately resume the payment of the alimony he had suspended, with retroactive effect from the date of suspension. Carmen covered her mouth with her hands, crying with relief. Lily remained very serious, processing that they had won. But there is more, the judge continued. I order a full investigation into the management of the family inheritance mentioned during this hearing to ensure that the minor's financial rights are properly protected. Roberto went pale. Not only had he lost custody, but now he was going to be investigated for his management of Lily's money. In addition, said Magistrate Herrera, and his voice took on a more severe tone, I want it to be on record that Mr. Morales' behavior in this case, attempting to use his own daughter to obtain financial benefits, is ethically reprehensible and will be reported to the corresponding authorities. The hammer blow resonated throughout the room. Case closed. Custody remains with the mother. The room was filled with an emotional silence. Carmen hugged Lily with all her strength, crying with joy and relief. They had won. Their family was going to remain united, but Magistrate Herrera was not finished. Lily, can you come to the stand for a moment? Lily separated from her mother's hug and walked towards the judge with curiosity. I want to tell you something very important, the magistrate told her in a low voice, but audible to everyone. What you did today was extraordinary. You not only defended your mother, but you defended the rights of all children who do not have a voice in these courts. Lily looked at him with her large, intelligent eyes. You have shown that age does not determine wisdom, and that the truth is always more powerful than money. I hope that when you grow up you consider studying law for real. The justice system needs more people like you. Do you really believe I could be a lawyer when I'm big? Lily asked. My child, after what I have seen today, I believe you are already a lawyer. You just need the title. Lily smiled for the first time all day. Your Honor, can I ask you something? Of course. Is it normal for children to have to defend themselves alone in these cases? The magistrate remained thoughtful for a moment. No, it is not normal, and it should not be necessary. Your case has made me reflect on how we can improve the system to ensure that all children have a voice and adequate representation. Lily nodded, satisfied with the answer. As they left the court, Carmen and Lily were stopped by several journalists who had heard about the unusual case of the girl who had acted as her own lawyer. Mrs. Morales, how do you feel about the court's decision? A reporter asked. I feel grateful, Carmen replied. Grateful to have such a brave and intelligent daughter, and grateful to live in a country where a judge can listen to the truth no matter where it comes from. Lily, what do you want to say to other children who might be going through similar situations? Another journalist asked her. Lily thought carefully before answering. I want to tell them that they are never too small to know their rights. that the truth is always important, even if it hurts to say it, and that if they really love someone, they have to be willing to fight for that person. She paused and added with the wisdom of someone much older. And I want to tell them that a real family is not about who has more money or the biggest house. It is about who loves you when you have nothing to offer them, except your heart. That night, in their small apartment, Carmen and Lily sat on the sofa to eat pizza to celebrate their victory. It was a simple dinner, but it felt like the most luxurious in the world. "Mommy, do you think Dad will ever understand what he did wrong?" Lily asked. Carmen considered the question carefully. "I don't know, my love. Some people need a lot of time to recognize their mistakes, and some never do." "I feel sad for him," Lily admitted, "because he lost the opportunity to have a real family." Carmen hugged her daughter, surprised once again by the emotional depth of that extraordinary girl. "Do you know what is the most incredible thing about you, Lily?" "What?" "That after everything we went through today, after everything you had to say about your dad, you still have compassion for him. That tells me that you have a beautiful heart." Lily snuggled next to her mother. "Mommy, we're going to be okay now. We're going to be more than okay, my love. We're going to be perfect exactly as we are." 3 weeks later, the case of Lily Grace Morales had made national news. Her story had become a symbol of how children can have a powerful voice in the justice system when they are allowed to speak. Magistrate Herrera had begun to advocate for changes in the law that would allow for better representation for minors in custody cases. Several law schools had contacted Carmen to offer full scholarships for Lily when she was older. But for Lily, the most important thing was that every morning she woke up in the bed next to her mother, in her small apartment, which now felt like the most beautiful palace in the world. Carmen had gotten a better job thanks in part to the positive publicity of her case. Roberto had started paying the alimony punctually, and the investigation into the inheritance had resulted in Lily recovering access to a considerable fund that had been denied to her. But the most valuable thing of all was that they had shown that true love always wins over money, that the truth is always stronger than lies, and that an 8-year-old girl with a pure heart can move mountains when she fights for what she loves. "You know what, Mommy?" Lily told her one morning while they had breakfast together. "What, my love?" "I think I do want to be a lawyer when I'm big, but not just any kind of lawyer." "What kind of lawyer do you want to be?" Lily smiled with that determination that had already changed their lives forever. "I want to be the type of lawyer who defends moms who don't have money to defend themselves, and I want to make sure that no child ever has to do what I did today." Carmen hugged her, knowing that her daughter had not only won a custody case, but had found her purpose in life. And as they prepared for another normal day in their extraordinary life, Carmen knew that she had raised not only a smart girl, but a future advocate for justice who would change the world, one case at a time. A legacy of hope. 6 months after the case that had changed their lives, Lily woke up one Saturday morning with a strange feeling in her stomach. It wasn't that she felt physically ill, but that something in the atmosphere of the house felt different. She had heard her mom talking on the phone very early, and from the tone of her voice, she knew something important was happening. Carmen was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Lily appeared in her pajamas, with her hair messy and that detective expression that she had learned to recognize. "Mommy, who were you talking to on the phone?" Carmen turned with a smile that failed to completely hide her nervousness. "Good morning to you too, lawyer." "Mommy," Lily said with that seriousness that had made her famous in court, "I have learned to read your expressions. Something is happening. Is it something bad?" Carmen sighed and sat at the table next to her daughter. During these months, they had developed a relationship based on complete honesty, and she was not going to break that trust now. "It's not something bad, my love, but it is something big." "Why so big?" "Do you remember when the judge said that your case had made him reflect on how to improve the system for children?" Lily nodded, remembering those words perfectly. "Well, it turns out that Magistrate Herrera has been working with other judges and lawyers to create a new program, a program that would give children like you a real voice in family courts." Lily's eyes lit up. "Seriously?" "Yes, and they want you to be part of that program. They want you to help them train it and make it work better." Lily remained silent for a moment, processing the information. "That means that other children won't have to go through what I went through." "Exactly, that's what it means." "And they want me to help them?" Carmen nodded. "But there's more. The National Law University wants to make a documentary about your case, and several children's rights organizations want you to speak at their conferences. Lily was thoughtful. During these months, her story had appeared in newspapers and on television programs. She had received letters from children across the country telling her their own difficult family stories. But this sounded much bigger. "Mommy, does that mean I'm going to have to talk a lot in public?" "Only if you want to, my love. No one is going to force you to do anything you don't want to do." Lily got up from the table and walked to the window, looking out at the street where other children were playing carefree. For a moment, Carmen could see the 8-year-old girl she really was, not the little lawyer who had surprised the world. "Mommy, can I ask you an honest question?" "Always." "Do you think it's fair that I have to keep being famous for something that I shouldn't have had to do?" The question hit Carmen like a punch to the stomach. Her daughter was right. It was unfair that an 8-year-old girl had to become a defender of children's rights because the system had failed. "You're right, my love. It's not fair. You shouldn't have had to do what you did." "But I already did it," Lily continued, turning to her mother. "And if my story can help other children not to have to go through the same thing, then maybe it is worth it." Carmen approached her daughter and hugged her. "Do you know how proud I am of you?" "I know, Mommy, but I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared that all this attention will change me. Scared that I'll become one of those people who think they are important because they were on television. Scared of forgetting why I did all this in the first place." Carmen knelt in front of her daughter to be at her height. "Lily Grace Morales, look me in the eyes." Lily looked at her. "You did what you did out of love. Out of love for me, out of love for our family, out of love for justice. As long as you remember that, you'll never change in the ways that matter. But what if fame makes me feel different? Then I will be here to remind you who you really are, to remind you that you are my daughter, that you are a normal girl who had to do something extraordinary, and that the most important thing about you is not what was in the newspapers but the beautiful heart you have." Lily nodded, feeling a little more secure. "And if I agree to do these things and then I regret it, then you stop. It's that simple. You control your own story, Lily. No one else." That afternoon, Carmen and Lily went to meet with Magistrate Herrera and a team of lawyers specializing in children's rights. The meeting was held in a university conference room, and when they arrived, Lily was surprised to see how many important people had come specifically to meet her. "Lily, I'm very glad to see you," Magistrate Herrera said, approaching with a genuine smile. "How have you been feeling these months?" "Good, Your Honor. A little overwhelmed sometimes, but good. That's completely normal. What you did was not normal, so it is natural that the consequences don't feel normal either." An elegant woman approached them. "Lily, I am Dr. Mendoza, Director of the Institute of Children's Rights. I have followed your case from the beginning, and I wanted to meet you personally." "Nice to meet you, Doctor." "Lily, can I ask you something? In all my years studying the rights of minors, I had never seen a child prepare so meticulously for a legal hearing. How did you know what to study?" Lily thought for a moment. "Well, I knew I needed to understand the laws that protected me, so I went to the library and asked for help. Mrs. Gonzalez helped me find the right books." "But how did you know which were the right laws?" "I read a lot, and every time I found something that seemed important for my case, I wrote it down in my notebooks. I guess I have a good memory for remembering important things." An older man who introduced himself as Dr. Vasquez, a professor of family law, joined the conversation. "Lily, I have been teaching law for 30 years, and some of my university students would not have been able to present a case as well-founded as yours. Have you seriously considered studying law when you are older?" "Yes, sir, but not just any kind of law. I want to specialize in cases like mine. I want to help families who don't have money to hire good lawyers." Dr. Mendoza leaned forward with interest. "And what do you think about the idea of creating a program where children like you can have specialized representation in family courts?" Lily's eyes lit up. "Do you mean there would be special lawyers just for children?" "Exactly that. Lawyers who would specialize in understanding what children need and who would work exclusively to protect their rights in custody, adoption, and other family situations." "That would be incredible," Lily replied with genuine enthusiasm. "But it would have to be free for families who can't pay." "Of course," Dr. Vasquez agreed. "It would be financed by the government and by organizations like ours." Magistrate Herrera intervened. "Lily, Your case has inspired real changes in the system. Several states are already considering implementing similar programs. Your story is changing the way we think about the rights of minors. Lily was silent for a moment, processing the magnitude of what they were telling her. That means my story is really going to help other children. It's already helping, Dr. Mendoza replied. We have received more than 200 letters from children and families who say that your case gave them hope and taught them about their rights. Carmen watched the conversation with a mixture of pride and concern. She was incredibly proud of her daughter, but she was also worried about the weight of so much responsibility on a child's shoulders. Can I ask a question? Carmen interrupted. Of course, Magistrate Herrera replied. If Lily decides to participate in this program, how are you going to make sure she remains a normal child? I don't want her to lose her childhood by being too involved in adult things. The question generated murmurs of approval among the adults present. That is a very valid concern, Dr. Mendoza replied. In fact, we have been discussing exactly that. Any participation by Lily would be limited, appropriate for her age, and always with her well-being as the main priority. In addition, Dr. Vasquez added, we are not asking Lily to become a full-time spokesperson. We are asking for her perspective to help us create a better system. Her participation would be occasional and always optional. Lily raised her hand as if she were in class. Can I say something? Everyone nodded. I understand that you want to help other children, and I want that too. But my mom is right to worry. I don't want this to become the only thing I talk about or the only thing I do. She paused, organizing her thoughts. I want to continue being a normal girl who goes to school, plays with her friends, and spends time with her mom. But if I can help make the system better for other children by doing that, then I do want to participate. What kind of participation would you feel comfortable doing? Magistrate Herrera asked. Maybe I could talk to other children who are going through similar cases to teach them about their rights. And maybe I could help train the new special lawyers to understand how children think. Dr. Mendoza smiled. Those are exactly the activities we had in mind. And how long would that take? Maybe 2 afternoons a month, and only during the school year. Summers would be completely free for you to be a normal child. Lily looked at her mother. What do you think, Mommy? Carmen considered carefully before responding. I think that if you want to do it, and if it's really going to help other children, then we should try it. But on the condition that if at any time you feel overwhelmed or you stop liking it, we stop immediately. Promise. I promise. Lily turned to the adults gathered. Okay, I want to help. But with the conditions that my mom and I said. Of course, Magistrate Herrera replied. Lily, there is one more thing I wanted to ask you. What? Do you have any advice for other children who might be facing difficult family situations? Lily thought carefully before answering. Yes, I want to tell them that they are not alone, even if they feel that way. I want them to know that they have rights and that there are good adults who want to help them. And I want them to know that the truth is always important, even if it hurts to say it. She paused and added with the wisdom that had characterized her from the beginning. But the most important thing I want to tell them is that true love always finds a way to win. Maybe not in the way we expect and maybe not as fast as we want, but it always wins. As they left the meeting that afternoon, Carmen took her daughter's hand. How do you feel about all this? I feel good, Mommy. I feel like it's the right thing to do. And you're not scared? A little bit, but you always tell me that it's normal to be scared when we're going to do something important. Carmen smiled. That's true. Besides, Lily continued with a mischievous smile, I've already faced professional lawyers in a courtroom. How difficult can it be to talk to other children? Carmen laughed, thinking that her 8-year-old daughter was probably right. That night, while they had dinner at their family table, Lily asked her a question that Carmen would never forget. Mommy, do you think everything we went through was worth it? Carmen looked at her daughter, who had grown so much in these months, but who was still her little one, and felt an absolute certainty in her heart. My love, every tear, every night of worry, every difficult moment was worth it to get to this moment, to see you become the extraordinary girl you are, to know that our story is going to help other families, and to be here together, knowing that our love was stronger than any obstacle. Lily smiled and continued eating her spaghetti. So, we are ready for the next adventure, right, Mummy? We are always ready, lawyer. Always. Tut, a lasting impact. 3 months after having agreed to participate in the Children's Rights Program, Lily was preparing for her first official session, helping other children. It was a Saturday morning and Carmen had styled her hair with special care, but without exaggerating. They wanted Lily to look professional, but to still look like the 8-year-old girl she was. "Are you nervous, my love?" Carmen asked, as she checked Lily's backpack, making sure she had her notebooks, her colored pencils to help the younger children express themselves, and a bottle of water. "A little bit," Lily admitted. "It's different helping my own family than helping strangers. But are you sure you want to do it?" "I'm sure, Mummy. It's just, what if I can't help them? What if their problems are too big for me?" Carmen knelt in front of her daughter. "Lily, no one expects you to solve all the problems. Your job is to listen, share what you have learned, and show them that they are not alone. That's already a lot." When they arrived at the Family Services Center, Dr. Mendoza was waiting for them, along with 2 children and their mothers. Lily immediately noticed that both children looked scared and sad, exactly as she had felt during the months before her hearing. "Lily, I'd like to introduce you to Hag Sophia, who is 7 years old, and Miguel, who is 10 years old. Both are facing family situations similar to the one you faced." Lily greeted the children with a genuine smile, but she could see immediately in their eyes the same mixture of fear and confusion that she had also known. "Hello, Sophia. Hello, Miguel. Do you know why you are here?" Sophia, a small girl with uneven pigtails and clothes that had clearly seen better days, shook her head shyly. Miguel, who was older, but had an expression of anger that Lily recognized as disguised fear, shrugged. "My mom says you came to help us, but I don't know how a little girl can help with adult problems." Lily smiled. "You know what? A year ago I thought the exact same thing. I thought that adult problems were too complicated for a child to understand." "And what changed?" Miguel asked with genuine curiosity despite his defensive attitude. "I realized that when adult problems affect me, then they are my problems too. And if they are my problems, then I have the right to understand them and to have an opinion about them." Dr. Mendoza watched the interaction with fascination. In all her years working with minors, she had never seen a child connect so naturally with other children in crisis. "Why don't we sit in a circle and each one tells us a little about their situation?" Lily suggested. "You don't have to tell anything you don't want to, but sometimes it helps to talk." They sat on the floor on colorful cushions that Dr. Mendoza had prepared specifically to make the environment less intimidating. "I'll start," Lily said. "A year ago, my dad wanted to take custody away from my mom. He had expensive lawyers and a lot of money, and we had nothing. I felt very scared because I thought they were going to separate me from the person I loved the most in the world." Sophia leaned forward, clearly identifying with the story. "And what did you do?" she asked. "First, I cried a lot. Then I got very angry. But then I decided that I had to do something to help my mom." "But you're a child," Miguel pointed out. "What could you do?" "Exactly what you can do. Learn about my rights and use my voice." Lily took out one of her original notebooks, the same one she had carried to court. "See this? This is the notebook where I wrote down everything I learned about the laws that protect me. I learned that children have rights, and that those rights do not depend on our age." Miguel took the notebook and leafed through it with amazement. "You wrote all this?" "Yes. I went to the library and read a lot of books. At first I didn't understand anything, but little by little I learned." "And did that really help you?" Sophia asked with a small voice. "It helped me so much that we won the case. My mom kept my custody, and now we are better than ever." The eyes of both children lit up with something that Lily recognized as hope. "Sophia, do you want to tell us what's happening in your family?" Lily asked gently. Sophia looked at her mother, who nodded with a supportive smile. "My dad says that my mom doesn't take good care of me because sometimes we don't have a lot of food at home, but it's not my mom's fault. She works very hard, but her boss doesn't pay her enough." Lily nodded sympathetically. "And are you afraid they will separate you from your mom?" "Yes," Sophia whispered, starting to cry. "I don't want to live with my dad. He is never home, and when he is always angry." Lily came closer and offered her a tissue. "You know what? Having little money doesn't make your mom a bad mother. I read in the law books that judges have to look at many different things, not just money." "Really? Really? Does your mom help you with your homework? Yes, every night. Does she take you to the doctor when you are sick? Always. Does she hug you when you are sad? All the time. Lily smiled. Then she is doing her job as a mom perfectly. Love and care are more important than money. Miguel had been listening in silence, but now he raised his hand as if he were in class. Can I tell my story? Of course. My dad wants me to go live with him and his new wife. He says my mom is poisoning me against him because I tell him I don't want to go. Lily frowned. Why don't you want to go live with your dad? Because when I go to visit him on weekends, he and his new wife are always telling me bad things about my mom. They tell me she is lazy, that she doesn't really love me, that if she loved me, she would have fought harder for my dad not to leave. Lily's expression became serious. Miguel, that is called parental alienation, and it is forbidden by law. What? Parents cannot speak badly of the other parent in front of their children. It is a form of emotional abuse. Miguel was left with his mouth open. Seriously? Seriously. In fact, if a parent does that constantly, they can lose their visitation rights. Dr. Mendoza watched the conversation with astonishment. Lily was explaining complex legal concepts in a way that children could understand perfectly. But how can I prove that that's happening? Miguel asked. Do you have brothers or sisters who also go on those visits? Yes, my little sister. She also hears those things. Yes, and she always cries afterwards. Lily opened a new notebook and gave it to Miguel. This is for you. Every time you go to visit your dad, write down exactly what they tell you about your mom, what the date was, and who was present, as evidence. Exactly as evidence. And if your sister is old enough to write, she can do the same. Miguel took the notebook as if it were a treasure. Do you really think this can help? I know it can help because the truth is always stronger than lies. For the next hour, Lily worked with both children, teaching them about their rights, helping them understand the legal processes in simple terms, and, most importantly, letting them know that they were not alone. Do you know what is the most important thing I want you to remember? She asked them at the end of the session. Both children shook their heads. That you matter. Your feelings matter. Your opinions matter and your happiness matters. Adults sometimes forget that when they are fighting each other, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Sophia raised her hand. Lily, are you going to continue helping children like us? Yes, because every child deserves to have someone who fights for them. And are you going to fight for us? Lily smiled with that determination that had changed her own life. I'm going to teach you how to fight for yourselves, because that's the most important lesson. You have more power than you think. When the families left that afternoon, Dr. Mendoza was left alone with Carmen and Lily. Lily, what you just did is extraordinary. You have connected with those children in a way that no adult could. It was easy, Lily replied. I just had to remember how I felt when I was scared. How do you feel now that your first official session is over? Lily thought for a moment. I feel good. I feel like I did something important. But I also feel a little sad. Sad? Why? Because it's unfair that there are so many children who are going through the same thing I went through. Why can't adults solve their problems without hurting the children? Carmen put her arm around her daughter. That is a very mature question, my love. It is a very important question, Dr. Mendoza added. And the answer is complicated. But children like you are helping to change that reality. That night, while they had dinner at home, Lily was quieter than usual. What are you thinking about, lawyer? Carmen asked. I'm thinking about Sophia and Miguel. I'm thinking about all the other children who are probably going through the same thing right now. Do you regret having agreed to help? No, Lily replied immediately. Not at all. But now, I understand better why you said this was a big responsibility. How's that? Because now I know that there are many children who need help and I feel like I have to help everyone, but I know I can't. Carmen nodded sympathetically. That is one of the most difficult things about growing up, my love. Realizing that you can't solve all the problems in the world, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to solve the ones you can. How do you keep from feeling overwhelmed? By remembering that every child you help is important. You don't have to save everyone to make a real difference in the world. Lily nodded, feeling a little better. Mummy, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think that one day the time will come when no child has to go through what we went through? Carmen looked at her daughter. that extraordinary girl who was still dreaming of a better world despite having seen the darkest parts of the system. Maybe not in our lifetime, she replied honestly, but I think that every family you help, every child who learns about their rights, every adult who better understands how to listen to minors, brings us a little closer to that world. Lily smiled. Then, we'll continue working until we get there. We'll continue working until we get there, Carmen agreed. That night, before going to sleep, Lily wrote in her personal diary something she had started doing after the court. Dear Diary, today I helped Sofia and Miguel. It felt good, but also difficult. I think I better understand why my story became so important. It's not just about me. It's about showing that children can have a voice when adults forget to listen to us. Tomorrow I'm going to call Mrs. Gonzalez at the library to ask her if she can help me find more books about children's rights. Because the more I learn, the more I can help, and the more I help, the closer we are to that better world I talked about with Mommy. Good night, Diary. Tomorrow will be another day of making a difference. Tauf, the Law of a Child's Voice. 5 years after that Friday that changed their lives forever, Lily Grace Morales was preparing to give the most important speech of her life, not in a courtroom this time, but in the National Congress, where at 13 years old she had become the youngest person in the country's history to address legislators about a bill that would bear her name, the Lily Law, for the integral protection of the rights of minors in family processes. Carmen watched from the galleries of Congress with tears of pride running down her cheeks. Her daughter was no longer that desperate 8-year-old girl who had had to become her own lawyer. Now she was a 13-year-old teenager who had helped more than 200 children in similar situations, had inspired legislative changes in 15 states, and had become the most respected voice in the country on the subject of children's rights. But for Carmen, she was still her little girl, who every morning gave her a kiss before going to school, and every night told her about her day while they had dinner together. Honorable deputies and senators, Lily began with a clear voice that filled the entire chamber. My name is Lily Grace Morales. 5 years ago, when I was 8 years old, I had to become my own mother's lawyer because our legal system did not have a place for the voice of children. The silence in Congress was absolute. Many of the legislators present had followed Lily's story from the beginning, but hearing her speak in person, seeing this articulate and confident teenager, was something completely different. Today, I am not here to tell my story again. I am here to talk about all the stories that have come after. Of Sofia, who at 7 years old had to explain to a judge why she wanted to stay with her hard-working mother instead of going with her rich father. Of Miguel, who at 10 years old meticulously documented how his father emotionally manipulated him during visits. Lily paused, letting the words impact. I am here to talk about Ana, who at 12 years old had to secretly record conversations where her stepfather threatened her to be able to prove that it was not safe to live with him. Of Carlos, who at 9 years old wrote a 6-page letter explaining to the court why his grandmother was a better guardian than his addicted parents. Each example that Lily gave represented a real case of the children she had helped during these 5 years through the program she had inspired. Honorable legislators, in these 5 years I have worked with more than 200 children who were forced to navigate the family justice system without adequate guidance. I have seen 6-year-olds who know their legal rights better than some adults. I have seen children who had to grow up too fast because no one else was going to protect their interests. Deputy Martinez, who had been one of the main promoters of the Lily Law, discreetly dried her eyes. But I have also seen something beautiful. I have seen that when we give children the right tools and adequate support, they can advocate for themselves in ways that surprise all the adults around them. I have seen that children do not need adults to speak for them. They need adults to listen to them. Lily opened the folder she had brought with her. The Lily Law that you are considering today is not just a law, it is a promise. A promise that no child in this country will have to go through what I went through. A promise that every minor involved in a custody process, adoption, or any family procedure will have access to a lawyer specialized in children's rights, completely free of charge. The murmurs of approval were heard throughout the chamber. But the law is also something more than that. It establishes that children over 6 years of age have the right to be heard directly by the judge in an environment appropriate for their age. It guarantees that no minor can be forced to make decisions about custody without first having a clear explanation of their options and rights. Lily closed the folder and looked directly at the legislators. I know that some of you wonder if it is appropriate to give so much voice to minors in these processes. I know that some think that children are not prepared to understand these complex situations. She paused significantly. I am going to tell you something that I have learned in these 5 years working with children in family crisis. Children understand much more than adults believe. They understand when they are loved and when they are used. They understand when someone really cares about their well-being and when someone only cares about winning a legal battle. Senator Lopez leaned forward, clearly moved by Lily's words. Children understand the difference between a parent who wants to take care of them and a parent who wants to control them. They understand when a decision is made thinking about their happiness and when it is made thinking about the convenience of adults. Lily took a deep breath before continuing with the most personal part of her speech. 5 years ago, I was a terrified girl who thought she was going to lose the most important person in her life. Today, I am a teenager who has seen the real power that children have when the system supports them, instead of ignoring them. Carmen brought her hands to her heart, remembering that little girl who had studied law in the library. But I am not here only as Lily Morales, the girl who became famous for defending her mother. I am here as the voice of all the children who cannot be here today. I am here representing every minor who at this moment is sitting in a courtroom, scared and confused, without understanding what is happening with their life. Lily walked towards the center of the podium. Honorable legislators, you have the power to ensure that my story is the last of its kind. You have the power to guarantee that never again will an 8-year-old child have to become a lawyer because the system does not give her another option. The emotion in her voice was palpable, but she maintained perfect composure. When you vote on this law, do not think only about the numbers or the costs. Think about Sophia, who is now 12 years old and is studying to be a social worker because she wants to help families like hers. Think about Miguel, who is 15 years old and wants to study law to specialize in parental alienation. She paused, looking at each legislator present. Think about the thousands of children who at this moment are living in split families, not knowing if they will be able to stay with the people they love. Think about the power you have to change those stories. Lily took one last paper from her folder. I want to finish by reading something I wrote the night before my custody hearing when I was 8 years old. I found it yesterday while preparing this speech. Carmen was surprised. She didn't know that Lily had kept those notes. Dear God, I don't know if you can hear me, but please don't let them separate me from my mommy. She is the best mommy in the world, and I just want to stay with her. If you have to give me something difficult, that's okay, but please don't take away my family. And if you can, please help other children who are going through the same thing I am. No one should have to be as scared as I am. There wasn't a dry eye in the entire congressional chamber. That prayer from an 8-year-old girl is the reason we are here today. Because God, the universe, destiny, whatever you want to call it, did not take away my family, but gave me something else. The opportunity to make sure that other children don't have to go through that fear. Lily closed the paper and looked one last time at all the legislators present. Honorable deputies and senators, today you can answer the prayer of that 8-year-old girl. You can vote to protect all the children who at this moment are praying the same prayer. You can make my story the end of an era and the beginning of another. She headed towards her seat, but stopped and returned to the microphone. One last thing. When I was little and I told people I was going to be a lawyer, some adults would smile and tell me it was cute for a little girl to have such big dreams. But I wasn't dreaming. I was planning. She smiled with that same determination she had shown 5 years ago. The Lily Law is just the beginning, because a generation of children who grew up knowing that their voices matter is going to change this world in ways you cannot even imagine. The applause that followed lasted a full 10 minutes. The legislators stood up, many crying openly. There was something in Lily's words that touched something deep in every person present. 3 hours later, the Lily Law was approved unanimously in both houses of Congress. It was the first time in the country's history that a law proposed by a minor was approved without a single vote against it. That night at home, Carmen and Lily sat on the sofa, as they had done thousands of times before. But this time, there was something different in the air. The feeling that they had reached the end of a very long chapter of their lives. "How do you feel, lawyer?" Carmen asked. using the affectionate nickname she had kept all these years. "I feel complete," Lily replied after thinking for a moment, as if all the struggle, all the pain, all the fear was worth it to get to this moment. "And what comes next?" Lily smiled with that same mischievous smile she had had since she was a child. "Now I finish high school, go to university, become a real lawyer, and continue changing the world. Simple as that. Simple as that." Carmen hugged her daughter, that extraordinary young woman who had started as a desperate girl and had become a force of change that had transformed an entire legal system. "Mommy, can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you regret anything about everything we went through?" Carmen considered the question carefully. "I regret the pain you had to go through. Yes, I regret that you had to grow up so fast. Yes, but do I regret the result? Never. Why? Because look at what we have achieved together. Look at all the children we have helped. Look at the laws that have changed. Look at the hope we have given to families who thought they had no options." Lily nodded, feeling the profound truth of those words. "Also," Carmen continued, "I think all this was part of your destiny. I think you were born to do exactly this." "Do you really believe that?" "I know it. Since you were very little, you have always had that ability to see injustice and want to fix it. This experience just gave you the tools to do it on a large scale." That night, Lily wrote in her personal diary for the last time as a minor. The next day, she would turn 14 and had decided that she wanted to start this new stage of her life with a reflection on everything she had learned. "Dear Diary, today they approved the Lily Law. 5 years after that terrible day in court, we have made it so that no child has to go through the same thing. It's strange to think that it all started because my dad wanted to take me away from my mum to get money. If he had known that that decision was going to inspire a national law, maybe he would have made a different decision. But I'm glad he didn't, because although it was painful, everything we went through led us to this moment. I have learned that sometimes the most terrible things in our lives can become the most important. I have learned that age does not determine wisdom, and that children can change the world when adults listen to them. I have learned that true love always finds a way to win, even if it takes time. And I have learned that a real family is not about blood or money, but about people who are willing to fight for each other. Tomorrow I turn 14. I am no longer going to be a child prodigy who surprises adults. I am going to be a teenager who has to continue growing and learning. But I am not afraid of the future because I know that everything I have lived has prepared me for what is to come. Thank you, diary, for accompanying me during these years. The next time I write it will be as a young adult with new dreams and new goals. But I will never forget the 8-year-old girl who decided that she had to fight for her family. She is the reason I am here. With love and hope for the future, Lily Grace Morales, future lawyer, children's advocate, and world changer. 10 years later, Dr. Lily Grace Morales graduated as the valedictorian of her class from the National University School of Law. Her doctoral thesis, The Voice of the Minor in Judicial Processes, A Silent Revolution, became required reading in all law schools in the country. She opened her own law firm specializing in children's rights, where she worked exclusively with low-income families. She never charged fees. All her work was financed by the donations she received from people who had been inspired by her story. Carmen, now National Director of the Program to Support Families in Crisis, worked alongside her daughter on especially complex cases. Mother and daughter had found a way to turn their pain into purpose and their personal experience into a professional tool to help others. Roberto had never contacted them again after the hearing. He had lost not only custody, but also access to the inheritance he had so coveted. The investigation had revealed that he had been embezzling funds from Lily's trust for years. He had had to return all the money with interest and faced charges of financial fraud. But Lily never spoke badly of him publicly. When journalists asked her about her father, she always answered the same thing. I hope that one day he understands that true love cannot be bought or stolen, and I hope he finds peace. The Lily Law had been adopted in more than 20 countries, and Lily had received invitations to speak at the United Nations, at the Vatican, and at universities around the world. But her favorite place to speak was still in elementary schools, where 8-year-olds listened to her with bright eyes and asked her how they could change the world too. It's simple, she would always tell them. Use your voice. Tell the truth. Love the people who love you back, and never forget that you have more power than you think. In one of those talks, an 8-year-old girl raised her hand. Dr. Lily, what happens if the adults don't listen to us? Lily smiled with that same smile that had conquered courts and congresses. Then, speak louder, because history has taught us that the truth always finds a way to be heard. You just have to have patience and keep talking. And if we are scared, fear is normal. I was also very scared, but love is always stronger than fear. And when you love someone enough, you find the courage to do things you never thought you could do. The girl nodded, satisfied with the answer. That night, on her way home, Lily reflected on the incredible journey her life had been. It had begun as a desperate girl who just wanted to stay with her mother. She had become a force of change that had transformed laws and saved families. But the most important thing of all was that she had learned the most valuable lesson in life, that true love, when combined with determination and courage, can move mountains, change systems, and create miracles. And as she drove towards the house where she lived with Carmen, she smiled at the thought that somewhere in the country there was probably an 8-year-old girl sitting in a library reading about her legal rights, preparing to fight for her family, because that had been Lily's true victory. She had not only won her own case, she had inspired a whole generation of children to believe that their voices mattered, that they could fight for justice, and that love always finds a way to win. And that, she had decided a long time ago, was the only inheritance that was really worth leaving.